Your journey ends here. Rain hammered the windshield like bullets as I waited outside the Meridian Club. 3 women stumbled through the glass doors, laughing too loud, clutching designer purses like life preservers. The privacy glass kept me invisible. Just another shadow in a black sedan. God, I still can't believe Serena's marrying that driver, the blonde said, sliding into the leather seat behind me. Her voice carried that particular brand of cruelty that rich women perfect over martinis. I adjusted the rearview mirror, catching her reflection. Jessica Crane. I'd driven her before. She never remembered faces, especially not mine. I mean, what does he even do? Sit behind a wheel all day? The brunette, Sarah Kim, buckled her seatbelt with manicured fingers. It's so ordinary. The third woman, Amanda Cross, leaned forward. Where to, ladies? Velvet room on 5th, Jessica said, already pulling out her phone. We need drinks after that disaster of a dinner. I nodded, started the engine, and pulled into traffic. The recording light on my dashboard glowed softly. Standard liability protection, clearly posted on every door. Most clients never noticed. Serena thinks he's some kind of catch because he drives rich people around, Sarah continued, like that makes him classy or something. I turned left instead of right. At least Troy had real money, Amanda said. Remember that yacht party last summer? Now that was a man who knew how to live. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Troy Vale, Serena's ex-boyfriend, the investor with the trust fund and cocaine habit. Speaking of Troy, Jessica giggled, lowering her voice. Don't tell Serena this, but he still has her key. The car went silent except for the rain. I kept driving, taking them farther from 5th Street, deeper into the warehouse district. Through the mirror, I watched Jessica realize we weren't heading to any club. Excuse me, she said, voice sharp. Now, this isn't the way to. I pulled up to Troy's building. 30-story glass tower, doorman who knew my face, parking garage that swallowed secrets. Ladies, I said, turning to face them for the first time. The privacy glass was down now. They could see my smile. Have a wonderful evening. Jessica's mouth fell open. Sarah went pale. Amanda fumbled for the door handle. Wait, Jessica stammered. You're Nate Kellum, I said, Serena's husband. The driver? They scrambled out like the car was on fire, heels clicking on wet pavement. I watched them disappear into Troy's lobby, then checked my phone. The recording had captured everything. Their voices, their laughter, their secrets, especially the part about Troy still having Serena's key. I drove home through empty streets, windshield wipers beating time like a funeral march. The rain was getting worse. The cabin audio was clean, no background noise. Perfect clarity. I sat in my home office at 3 a.m., editing software glowing on the screen, trimming the 2-minute highlight reel that would change everything. Jessica's voice. I still can't believe Serena's marrying that driver. Sarah's laugh. What does he even do? Sit behind a wheel all day? Amanda's confession. Don't tell Serena this, but Troy still has her key. I burned it onto a USB drive and labeled it with yesterday's date. No message, no explanation needed, just the truth. Recorded legally under posted notice in a commercial vehicle. Serena was still asleep when I slipped the drive into her makeup drawer, nestled between lipsticks and foundation brushes she'd never miss. She had an early flight to Chicago for some PR conference. Perfect timing. I was finishing my second cup of coffee when she found it. What the heck is this? She stood in the kitchen doorway, USB in her palm like a piece of evidence. I looked up from my newspaper. Play it and find out. Her face changed as she listened. First confusion, then recognition, then something close to panic. When it finished, she set the laptop down with trembling fingers. Where did you get this? They rode with me Tuesday night, I said. Asked for Velvet Room. I took them somewhere else first. You recorded my friends. I pointed to the liability notice stuck on our refrigerator. Same wording as in my car. Standard protection. They signed waivers when they booked the ride. This is insane, Nate. You can't just what? Drive them where they wanted to go. Record conversations in my own vehicle with posted notice. I folded the newspaper carefully. Or can't just let you hear what your friends really think of me. She stared at the USB like it might bite her. Troy doesn't have my key. No, I changed the locks last year. I smiled. Did you tell them that? Her silence was answer enough. I have to leave for the airport, she said finally. Safe travels. I watched her pack. Efficient movements that spoke of practiced escape. At the door she turned back. When I get home, we're talking about this. Next time you talk about me, I said, check who's listening. She slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I poured another cup of coffee and started planning my next move. Jace Feller's shops smelled like motor oil and opportunity. We'd known each other since high school, back when he fixed motorcycles and I dreamed of racing them. Now he installed fleet management systems for luxury transport companies. You want rote data on your wife's friends? He wiped his hands on a greasy rag, eyeing me like I'd grown a second head. Nothing illegal, just what they volunteer when they book rides. I leaned against his workbench. Public social media posts, pickup schedules they give me themselves. Why? Because I'm tired of being invisible. Jace nodded slowly. He understood invisible. His ex-wife had made him feel that way for 8 years before she left him for her tennis instructor. I can track pickup patterns, cross-reference with social media check-ins, he said. But this feels like what? Like you're going to war. I smiled. I'm already at war. They just don't know it yet. He pulled up a mapping program on his tablet. Give me names. I rattled off Serena's inner circle, the women who'd shaped her opinion of me over 3 years of marriage. Jessica Crane, Sarah Kim, Amanda Cross, plus a dozen others who thought they knew my worth. This is public information, I said. Client pickup requests, social media posts they choose to make visible, event check-ins they broadcast themselves. Legal doesn't mean smart, Nate. Smart is what I do for a living. I watch, I listen, I remember. I tapped the screen. I've been driving these women for 2 years. You think they pay attention to faces behind the wheel? Jace pulled up Jessica's Instagram. Photos from last weekend's charity gala, tagged locations, timestamps that matched my logbook entries. She books you every Thursday night, he said. Bar crawl with the pharmaceutical sales girls and posts her route in real time. Makes my job easier. What's the end game here? I thought of Serena's face when she'd played that USB, the moment she realized her friends saw her husband as a joke. The panic when she couldn't defend what she'd probably said herself. Truth, I said, with consequences. Jason's computer pinged. New booking request. Ellie Shore. Thursday evening pickup. Airport run. Speaking of truth, I said, reading the name, there's someone who knows where the bodies are buried. Ellie Shore, bridesmaid at Serena's best friend's wedding 2 years ago. She'd been in my car exactly twice, both times drunk, both times guilty about something she wouldn't say. You know her? I know she has secrets. I headed for the door. Now I'm going to find out what they are. Ellie Shore looked like she'd seen a ghost when I pulled up to her office building. Designer clothes, nervous energy, the kind of woman who checked her phone every 30 seconds like she was expecting bad news. Hi, she said, sliding into the back seat. Lax, please. Terminal 6. I recognized her immediately. The red hair, the guilty eyes, the way she fidgeted with her wedding ring like it was evidence of a crime. "Haven't seen you since the Patterson wedding," I said, pulling into traffic. Her face went white. "You remember that?" I remember faces, especially ones that look worried. The drive to LAX took 43 minutes. For the first 30, she said nothing. Then the alcohol smell hit me. Minibar bottles from her purse, liquid courage for whatever confession was eating her alive. "That wedding," she said suddenly. "Sarah Patterson's wedding. What about it?" Serena was my friend then, before she got so. She gestured vaguely, before she became who she is now. I adjusted the mirror to watch her face. People change. She kissed someone at that wedding. The words tumbled out like she'd been holding them for years. "Behind the reception tent, not you." My hands stayed steady on the wheel. "Who?" "Troy's investor friend, some banker from New York." She pulled out her phone with shaking fingers. "I took pictures. I was drunk. Thought it was funny at the time." She showed me the phone screen, a timestamp from 2 years ago. Clear images of Serena in her wedding guest dressed against some stranger in a tuxedo. Their faces locked together behind white canvas. "I should have deleted these," she said. "Should have pretended I never saw it." "Why didn't you?" "Because I knew she'd hurt someone good someday. And I was right, wasn't I?" She airdropped the photos to my phone. Her choice, no coercion. 5 images, all time-stamped, all clear enough to end arguments about faithfulness. At the airport, she grabbed my arm before getting out. "What are you going to do with those?" "The truth," I said. "Nothing more, nothing less. She'll know they came from me." "Will she?" Ellie stared at me for a long moment, then nodded like she'd made a decision. "Good luck, Nate. You deserve better than this." I watched her disappear into the terminal, then looked at the photos on my phone. Serena's face caught in betrayal, preserved in digital amber. I drove home and burned a second USB. This one got no label, just a date that would mean everything to the woman who'd forgotten it. The Penthouse Club's rooftop mixer was Serena's big night. 200 guests, open bar, city lights stretching to the horizon. She'd spent weeks planning this event, calling it her career-defining moment with the kind of dramatic flair that made our conversations feel like bad theater. I wasn't invited. I was working. VIP shuttle service, the event coordinator had explained. Discreet transportation for our most important guests. You'll be invisible, just the way they like it. Invisible. The word that defined my marriage. Troy Vale was my second pickup of the evening. He sat in the front passenger seat. Unusual for someone of his social status, but he'd always been different. Arrogant in small ways that mattered. "Penthouse Club," he said, not bothering with pleasantries. "Big event tonight," I replied. "Serena's things should be interesting." The way he said her name made my teeth clench like he owned it. "You two still in touch?" He looked at me for the first time. "Really?" "Looked. You're the husband, I'm the driver. Same thing, apparently." I pulled up to the club as Serena was giving her opening remarks on the rooftop terrace. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see her commanding the crowd, wineglass raised, that radiant smile that had made me fall in love with her 4 years ago. Troy got out and straightened his suit jacket. "Thanks for the ride." He walked into the building like he owned it, and I realized he was heading straight for Serena's moment of triumph. The timing was too perfect to be accidental. I parked across the street and watched through my telephoto camera. Standard equipment for monitoring client security. Within minutes, whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire. Serena's speech faltered as she spotted Troy near the bar, his presence disrupting the careful choreography of her professional moment. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The crowd did the talking for them, a chorus of speculation and sideways glances that turned her career milestone into a gossip opportunity. By the time I made my next pickup, 3 different party photographers had captured images of the moment. Not of Troy and Serena together, that would have been too obvious, but of the disruption, the confusion, the professional stumble that occurred when past and present collided. At 11 p.m., Serena cornered me by the service elevator. "What the heck do you think you're doing?" I held the door open for her, professional smile in place, providing transportation services. "You brought Troy here to my event. He booked a ride. I drove him where he asked to go." Her face was flushed with wine and anger. "This is my career, Nate." "My reputation, I know. Then why?" The elevator dinged. Camera flash strobed from across the lobby as some photographer caught our tense conversation, framing it against the city lights beyond. She grabbed my arm. "We're not done talking about this." "Actually," I said, stepping into the elevator, "I think we are. The anonymous email went out at 6 a.m. on Monday. No return address, no message, just a 2-minute audio file attached to addresses I'd pulled from Serena's contact list. Her PR firm, her biggest clients, her professional network. The audio was clean, legal, and devastating. Jessica's voice mocking our marriage, Sarah's laughter at my profession, Amanda's casual betrayal about Troy's key, all recorded under posted notice in a licensed commercial vehicle. By 9 a.m., Serena's phone was ringing non-stop. "They want to know about your sources and your recording methods," she said, pacing our kitchen like a caged animal. "My reputation is being questioned because my husband apparently runs a surveillance operation. I run a transportation service with standard liability protection. Don't play word games with me, Nate." I poured coffee, checked my phone. 3 new booking requests had come in overnight, including one from Sarah Kim, who apparently hadn't connected the dots yet. "Your friends were discussing private matters in a commercial vehicle with clearly posted recording notices," I said. "That's their choice, not mine. This is insane. You're destroying my career over gossip." "I'm not destroying anything. I'm just making sure the right people hear what your friends really think." She threw her coffee mug across the room. It shattered against the cabinet, leaving a brown stain that looked like dried red stains. "Fix this," she demanded. "Fix what?" "The fact that your friends have no respect for your marriage, or the fact that you never defended it." Her phone rang again. She ignored it, but I could see the caller ID. Jessica Crane. "They won't even take my calls now," Serena said quietly. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. After she left for damage control meetings, I found an envelope under my windshield wiper. No signature, no return address. Just a valet stub from Troy's building with his unit number written in red ink. Someone was watching. Someone wanted me to know they were paying attention. I started the engine and headed for the warehouse district, thinking about keys and opportunities and the kinds of secrets that rich people kept in glass towers. Troy's building had security cameras, but they didn't cover the parking garage stairwells. I'd noticed that during my previous visits, the kind of detail you pick up when you spend your life navigating urban architecture. I waited in the shadows between floors, timing his routine. Troy was predictable in the way that wealthy men often are. Same restaurant every Tuesday, same time, same entrance and exit patterns. He appeared at 9:47 p.m., designer shoes echoing off concrete, phone pressed to his ear. "Tell her I'll think about it," he was saying, "but I'm not getting involved in her marriage drama." I stepped out of the shadows. Too late for that. He spun around, nearly dropping his phone. In the harsh fluorescent light, his face looked older than his 34 years. "Jesus, you scared me." He pocketed the phone. "What are you doing here?" "Wondered the same thing about you at Serena's event last week." "I was invited by who?" He hesitated just long enough to confirm what I already knew. "A friend of mine knows the coordinator." Bull crap. Troy straightened his shoulders, trying to project authority he didn't feel. "Look, I don't know what kind of game you're playing with those recordings, but..." "Game." I stepped closer. "You think this is a game? I think you're having some kind of breakdown. Following people, recording conversations, stalking events." He backed toward the elevator. "Serena deserves better than this. Serena deserves what she gets." "Meaning," I smiled. "Meaning you still have her key." His face went pale. "How did you—" "No, because her friends can't keep their mouth shut. Same as you, apparently." I moved faster than he expected, grabbing his phone before he could hit the elevator button. The concrete stairwell amplified the sound as it hit the floor, screen cracking into spiderweb patterns. "That's a $1,200 phone," he said. "Send me a bill." I picked up the broken device and dropped it into a storm drain where it disappeared into darkness with a satisfying splash. "Stay away from my wife," I said. "Or what?" I leaned close enough to smell his expensive cologne. "Or I'll stop being reasonable." The elevator dinged behind us. Empty car. Perfect timing. I stepped aside and gestured toward the open doors. "Going up." Troy stumbled into the elevator, hitting buttons with shaking fingers. As the doors closed, I pulled out my own phone and sent Serena a text message. Careful, slippery route. She'd understand. She always did eventually. Roxy's penthouse was the kind of place where secrets went to die. 24th floor, soundproofed windows, balcony that overlooked half the city. She'd built her interior design empire on understanding what wealthy people wanted to hide. The private car was a nice touch. Roxy liked her privacy, especially when hosting strategy sessions that involved other people's money and marriages. I pulled up at 8:15 p.m. right on schedule. Roxy emerged from the elevator wearing the kind of outfit that cost more than most people's cars. Silk and diamonds, and the confidence that came from never worrying about money. "Evening, Mr. Callum," she said, sliding into the back seat. "Penthouse Club, please." Of course. We drove in comfortable silence through downtown traffic. Roxy was one of my better clients, professional, punctual, generous with tips. She also had the loudest balcony conversations in the city. "Actually," she said as we approached her building, "could you wait for me? I'm expecting friends and we might need transport later." "How long?" "Hour, maybe 2. I'll pay the wait time." I parked in the private bay, windows down to catch the evening breeze. 24 stories up, Roxy's balcony was lit like a stage, voices carrying clearly in the still air. "She's considering it." Roxy's voice drifted down, meeting with Troy to close loops, as she put it. Another woman laughed, a sound I recognized as Sarah Kim. Serena always was dramatic about her relationships. "It's not drama when your marriage is falling apart," said a third voice. Amanda Cross. "The whole gang was here." "Maybe it should fall apart," Roxy replied. "That driver of hers is clearly unstable. Those recordings, the stalking behavior." "Stalking." Sarah's voice pitched higher. "What do you mean, stalking?" "He followed Troy to dinner last week, cornered him in a parking garage. Troy's considering a restraining order." I pulled out my phone and started a voice memo app. Not illegal. I was parked on a public street recording conversations that were occurring in open air without reasonable expectation of privacy. "Serena needs to make a choice," Amanda said. "Either commit to the marriage or end it cleanly." "With someone like Troy available again," Roxy added, "the choice seems obvious." The conversation continued for another 20 minutes. Plans were made, strategies discussed. My wife's future decided by women who'd never worked a day in their lives. At 10:30, they moved inside. I sent Serena a text message. "Don't forget your keys." Then I included Troy's address. She knows what that meant. She always did. Eventually, Troy was waiting for me in the parking garage stairwell, but this time he wasn't alone. 2 security guards flanked him. Building personnel, not private muscle, but intimidating enough for his purposes. "Mr. Kellum," he said, voice echoing off concrete walls. "We need to talk, do we? About boundaries, about appropriate behavior, about leaving my building and my life alone." I looked at the security guards, young men, probably college age, working part-time jobs to pay rent. They had that uncomfortable look of people who'd been asked to handle something outside their training. "You boys want to step aside," I said. "This is between me and him." "They're here to witness," Troy replied, "in case you decide to get physical again." "Physical?" "I dropped your phone in a drain. Hardly assault. Intimidation then, harassment, whatever you want to call it." I smiled and took a step closer. The guards shifted nervously, hands moving toward their radios. "Here's what I call it," I said. "A conversation between 2 men about appropriate boundaries." Troy's confidence cracked slightly. "Stay away from my building." "Can't do that. I have clients here." "Then stay away from me." "Can't do that either. You keep inserting yourself into my life." I moved fast, not toward Troy, but toward the stair railing. My hands slammed into the metal barrier with a sound like a gunshot. The guards jumped, reaching for their equipment. "Careful," I said to Troy, rubbing my knuckles. "Slippery roots around here." Troy's face went white. He understood the reference, the implication, the promise hidden in simple words. "Let's go," he told the guards. They backed toward the elevator, professional training walling with personal unease. As the doors closed, I caught Troy's reflection in the polished metal. Fear masquerading as anger. Authority undermined by trembling hands. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of the stairwell. Concrete and fluorescent lights, and the kind of institutional architecture that made people disappear. Then I sent it to Serena with a single line. "Careful, slippery route." She'd get the message. She always did eventually. Walking back to my car, I thought about boundaries and consequences, and the thin line between justice and revenge. I wasn't crossing that line. Not yet. But I was getting close. Ellie Shore was waiting in my car when I finished my 2 a.m. pickup from the medical district. She'd somehow gotten past the door locks. Impressive for someone who claimed to be just a marketing coordinator. "We need to talk," she said from the back seat, "about what you're doing to Serena and what I'm going to do to help you finish it." I adjusted the mirror to study her face, sober this time, determined in a way that suggested she'd been thinking about our last conversation. "Why would you help me?" "Because she destroyed my friendship with Sarah Patterson. Turned her against me after that wedding because I knew too much about her indiscretions. Such as the banker wasn't the only one." Ellie pulled out her phone, scrolled through a photo album labeled SP Wedding. Delete. There was also the bartender and the wedding planner's assistant. Your wife had a busy night. She showed me the images, more time-stamped photos, different locations around the venue. Same betrayal played out in multiple acts. How many people know about this? Just me. I was the designated photographer's assistant that night. Had access everywhere. She paused. I kept these because I knew someday I'd need insurance against her. What changed? You did. When you started fighting back, I realized maybe it was time to stop protecting someone who'd never protected me. She airdropped the entire album to my phone. Dozens of images, video clips, a complete documentary of my wife's wedding night. Infidelity. What do you want in return? Nothing from you. But I want Serena to know these came from me. Ellie's voice carried the weight of years of suppressed resentment. I want her to understand that actions have witnesses, and witnesses eventually talk. I drove her home through empty streets, thinking about loyalty and betrayal in the mathematics of revenge. By morning, I had enough evidence to destroy Serena's reputation completely. But reputation wasn't enough. I wanted her to feel what I'd felt. Invisible, powerless, dismissed by people who claimed to care. At 8 a.m., I called a family law attorney, made an appointment for the following week to discuss equitable distribution, marital waste, and the legal framework for walking away with dignity intact. The consultation would cost $500. The information would be priceless. The lease on our apartment was in my name. I'd been the guarantor when Serena's credit couldn't cover the luxury building she demanded. 3 years of payments, always on time, always from my account. Canceling the lease took one phone call. 30 days' notice is standard, the property manager explained. But given your excellent payment history, we can accommodate an early termination for a modest fee. The fee was $2,000. I paid it with a cashier's check same day. Moving our belongings took careful consideration. Community property laws were complex, but marital waste doctrines were well established. Items purchased with joint funds during the marriage belonged to both parties, unless one party had deliberately destroyed value through infidelity or abandonment. The furniture went to charity. I kept the receipts. Tax-deductible donations that would benefit me during the next filing season. The electronics, jewelry, artwork, anything with clear individual ownership stayed with its original purchaser. What remained was remarkably little. 3 years of marriage reduced to a pile of shared photographs and kitchen appliances. I left Serena one item on the empty living room floor. A USB drive labeled with her wedding date 2 years ago. She found it when she returned from her Chicago meeting, walking into rooms that echoed with the sound of her own footsteps. Nate. Her voice carried through empty spaces bouncing off bare walls. Nate, where are you? I was already gone. New apartment across town, month-to-month lease. Furnished rooms that felt like freedom. She called my phone at midnight, voice breaking with something that might have been genuine emotion. I played your little gift, she said. Those pictures, they're not what they look like. What do they look like? Like I was drunk and stupid and made mistakes I can't take back? Sounds accurate. This isn't how marriages end, Nate. People talk, they fight. They try to work things out. People do. I agreed. Husbands and wives do, but we stopped being that a long time ago. When I thought about it, probably the first time you laughed when your friends called me just a driver. The line went quiet except for the sound of her breathing. I never meant what? To let them know exactly how you felt, to show me where I ranked in your priorities. I smiled in the darkness of my new bedroom. Mission accomplished. Where are you? Gone. I hung up and turned off the phone. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and paperwork and the careful dismantling of 3 years' worth of shared decisions. Tonight, I slept better than I had in months. The freeway was slick with rain when Troy's headlights appeared in my mirror, weaving through traffic like a man with nothing left to lose. I was returning Serena's laptop bag, her property, legally speaking, though the irony wasn't lost on me. His BMW pulled alongside my sedan at 70 miles per hour, engine roaring against the storm. Through the passenger window, I could see his face twisted with rage and something closer to desperation. He swerved toward me, I touched the brakes, let him slide past, then accelerated into the gap he'd created. Professional driving techniques learned during mandatory defensive courses that luxury transport companies required. Troy tried again, cutting across 2 lanes to block my path. His car hydroplaned on standing water, rear wheels losing traction on the slick asphalt. I steered into the slide, maintaining control while he fought to recover. Amateur, I muttered, checking my mirrors. The chase continued for 3 miles through downtown streets, rain hammering both vehicles like a relentless barrage. Troy's driving was aggressive but sloppy. Too much emotion, not enough technique. He was treating this like a movie when it should have been treated like surgery. I led him toward the warehouse district where traffic thinned and options multiplied. At a red light, he pulled alongside me and rolled down his window. "Give me the bag," he shouted over the storm. "What bag? You know what bag?" The light changed. I accelerated through the intersection while he was still talking, putting 50 yards between us before he could react. In the mirror, I watched him try to catch up, his car sliding sideways as he took the corner too fast. He spun out 2 blocks later, BMW rotating like a carnival ride before slamming into a concrete barrier. Not hard enough to end, but hard enough to hurt. Steam rose from his crumpled hood, mixing rain and radiator fluid into a toxic cloud. I stopped, put the car in park, and walked back through the downpour. Troy was conscious, seatbelt cutting into his chest. "You okay?" He nodded, too shaken to speak. "Good." I reached through his broken window and pulled the keys from his ignition. "Stay away from my wife." I dropped the keys into a storm drain and walked back to my car, leaving him to explain to the tow truck driver and insurance adjuster and police officers why he'd been chasing another vehicle through a thunderstorm. The laptop bag went on to Serena's front porch along with a letter I'd written that morning. Formal separation agreement, asset division, and a clear statement that I wanted distance, not reconciliation. No therapy, no counseling, no attempts to work things out. Just the end, delivered through rain and darkness and the mathematics of consequence. I drove home through empty streets, thinking about choices and their inevitable results. Some storms you weather, others you just survive. This one was almost over.